Are we back? After these messages, we'll be right back. You remember that commercial? Like when the cartoons and stuff?
Channel 36.
It wasn't Channel 36, Rob.
It was
like
Channel
CBS. That's because you were in the wilderness.
PBS.
No, dude.
After these messages.
That wasn't PBS. That was like the.
Right back.
No,
I remember.
That was CBS, or like the mainstream cartoon, not PBS.
No, it was PBS.
No, it wasn't PBS. Dude, go sit down, Toria. Distracting us, man. All right. Anyway, welcome back. Before we left, we were talking about the hidden assumptions that the atheists were trying to smuggle into their reasoning. So we have to bring them out right now. Hidden assumption number one is this. If God is omnipotent, he can create any world that he desires. Okay, we'll talk about that in a second. Hidden assumption number two. If God is omnibenevolent, he prefers a world without evil over a world with evil. You see? They're really sneaky. They didn't say that forthrightly, but they smuggled it into their reasoning, on the low. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, so let's see what they're saying. So what they're saying is this. God's really big and bad, as y'all say he is, how great is our God and all that stuff. Even Muslims, they always say, Allah Akbar, they talk about how great God is and stuff. If God is really that great, then he can do whatever he wants to, right? So that means he can create a world that's so, he can create a world that's so crazy. Everybody freely chooses to do what's good, and there's nothing bad that happens. Everybody's just chilling, roasting s'mores by the campfire, holding hands and singing Kumbaya. Everybody's just having a wonderful time, a blast. God could create a world like that, possibly. I guess this, you could even speak about Voltaire and Candide, how he talked about, him and Pangloss were debating on whether this is the best of all possible worlds, saying that possibly God could make a world where everybody freely chooses to do what's good. Okay? And it's saying that if he's all good, morally speaking, then he would prefer a world without any evil over and above a world where evil exists, i.e. like the world we have today. Okay, as a quick reminder, let me just remind you guys we're going the defense route as opposed to the theodicy route. So all we really have to do is to give a possible explanation as to why God could have made a world such as the one we have today, as opposed to, the best of all possible worlds, or even to say a world where everybody freely chooses to do what's right all the time. Okay? And if we do that, then the atheist case is abolished. They lose, they get L'd out, you know what I'm saying? They gotta live with that. So anyway, Alvin Plantinga, dude we were talking about earlier from Notre Dame, he's really cool. He almost looks like one of the guys from Duck Dynasty. He has like a really big beard. Shout out to the Goatee Clan, you know what I'm saying? I'm growing mine out. But yeah, Alvin Plantinga, he has something called the free will defense. And it attacks both of the hidden assumptions that the atheists have smuggled into their reasoning. So, what he says is this. If God grants genuine freedom, and when we talk about genuine freedom, we talk about cats really have the power to choose, man. Not pseudo freedom, or it looks like people are free, but they're really not free. We're talking about God really lets people be free to choose either right or wrong, because if somebody's free, they have the option of choosing not always the best thing for them and others. So if God grants genuine freedom for people to choose as they like, it is impossible for him to guarantee what their choices may be. Which is to say, they very well may choose what's wrong. Now, I know what some of you guys are thinking. You're like, yo, bruh Jerry, I thought you said God was omnipotent, right? Know what I'm saying? Well, if God is omnipotent, that means nothing's impossible for him. He can do whatever he wants. And that's what you're thinking, you know what I'm saying? You like, oh, I got this dude now. Because he said something's impossible for God. And if something's impossible for God, God don't have all the power in the world. That's what you're thinking, right? And you like, you got a smug grin on your face. I can see you through the screen. I can see you smiling, you know what I'm saying? But let me break something down for you, you know. Let me just, let me in love, explain the error of your reason. Uh, Let me explain something to you, dude. You know, logical contradictions in no way undermine or diminish the sovereignty of God. Let me try to put that in layman's terms for you. There are some things that, logically speaking, just can't happen. You know, for instance, uh, neither I or anyone else can make a squared circle. You know what I'm saying? If something is a circle, then by very definition, it can't be a square. In like manner, I can't find somebody who is a married bachelor. You know, William Lane Craig, he uses that example. Shout out to Willie, man. Willie, he be killing the apologetic stuff. Check out his stuff. I used to always watch his debates. It's almost like watching a freestyle battle. He be eating everybody alive. Anyway, he always used that example. Like he always say, you can't have a married bachelor. I mean, because think about it. If somebody's a bachelor, by definition of being a bachelor, it means they're not married. So you can't be a married bachelor. You may be married and acting like a bachelor, but that just means you're living in sin and you ain't doing right. And you need to repent. So you can't be a married bachelor. You can't have a square circle. You can't, I mean, yeah. There's certain things that are just, it's just nonsensical to talk about. And as C.S. Lewis so eloquently stated, nonsense is still nonsense, even if you put God can at the beginning of it. You know, you're really not saying anything. So if you say something that is just logically impossible and say, oh, well, God can't do this. God can't create an unstoppable force and an unmovable object. If I got God, I stumped God. No, you didn't. You just said some foolishness, and you need to check yourself because God is still running stuff, and you just saying stupid things. I'm sorry for saying you're just saying stuff that don't make sense. You know what I'm saying? So you need to check yourself. That doesn't diminish God. That just shows that you haven't really thought through what you're saying. Okay? So what he's saying is this: there are some things that are impossible. One of which being the possibility of God making a universe in which everyone can freely choose to do what's right, because by very definition of freedom of choice, there's an inherent option for people to choose what's wrong as well as what's right. You know what I'm saying? So God can't guarantee that they freely choose what's right, because that would be him pushing them in that direction. You know? Okay. This ties in with what we would call God's middle knowledge. Now, when we talk about middle knowledge, we're talking about, because, not only is God omnipotent and omnibenevolent, the Bible also describes God as being omniscient, meaning that he knows everything, like everything there is to know. Can you imagine that? Some of y'all act like y'all are omniscient. Sometimes Toya act like she's omniscient. But none of us are omniscient because we're just human beings. But God is omniscient, meaning that he knows everything. And with that being the case, not only does he know everything that has happened, not only does he know everything that's happening now, not only does he know everything that will happen, God also, in his omniscient wisdom, knows everything that could have happened had he created the world and the universe and everything that exists differently. Like, let's say God just made everything, he switched the whole game up on us. Like, God is so smart, he knows how every scenario would have played out, like in any given set of circumstances. That's called his middle knowledge. So, with that being said, God knows how things would have played out had he created the world differently. And he knows that in his wisdom and in his love and in his mercy, that he's given us exactly what we need, and that's why he made things the way they are now. Okay. So those are some things to combat the first hidden assumption that the atheists smuggled into their reasoning. We're still talking about the logical problem of pain and suffering. Let's talk about the second assumption. If you can remember back, the second assumption was that, well, if God is so good, he clearly would prefer a world where evil and suffering didn't exist as opposed to a world where evil and suffering do exist. Where they do exist. So what do you Christians have to say about that? Well, brother C.S. Lewis, Clive Staple Lewis, one of my homies, man. He's dead, but he's still like the homie, man. I love C.S. Lewis. Shout out to C.S. On the other side or whatever. He went to Oxford too. He studied there. He taught there. He wrote a lot of really dope books. Have you seen the Chronicles of Narnia? You know what I'm saying? That was my dude. But anyway, in his book, he wrote a book on this topic that you should really check out if you're interested in further study. His book is called Problems with Pain. In this book, he lays out 4 different metaphors of God's relationship to humanity. And I think it's really helpful to look at those because it can really help us understand how we can respond to this second assumption. If we look at these metaphors, the first one is like, let's say, a creator to his creation, meaning, let's say, a builder to a building. The Bible refers to God's children as being a temple. He also talks about us being like his workmanship and almost like an artist crafting a piece of art. That's how God is towards his creation. So even if we look at that, let's say, I'm an artist. You know what I'm saying? I make dope rhymes. And keep in mind, we're talking about why God would allow evil, painful things that are uncomfortable to us. Why would he allow these things to happen? So, when I'm writing a verse, see, I'm a perfectionist. That's why my rhymes be so dope. You know what I'm saying? Because I put a lot of thought, I put a lot of effort into the lyrics that I'm saying. I'm what you would call a lyricist, a true MC. In the traditional sense of hip hop. You know what I'm saying? Shout out to the real hip hop heads out there. So I put a lot of thought into the bars that I write. I'm very meticulous and methodical about how I construct each line. Sometimes even to a fault, I'd say. I don't just, brashly just, kind of just jot down whatever and then record it and just throw it out to the masses to hear and to chuckle and belly laughter at. I don't do that. Some of you rappers do, and that's why you're not good. But me, I take time into my lyrics, into my words, because I feel like I'm conveying, even my life, man. Art is a reflection of life, so I take it seriously. So I put a lot of thought in crafting each line exactly the way I want it to be, and I sometimes I cut things out. Sometimes I edit it often and over again. Now let's imagine that this verse was a sentient being. My verse is living and breathing now. It probably wouldn't enjoy, being cut, being scrutinized, being analyzed on such a critical level. It'll probably say, "Hey, Jay Black, leave me alone. I'm already dope. Just leave me alone. Let me be. Put me on the record. Let the world hear me." But I'm like, no, verse, you got to get better. I got to take this word out so that the cadence will flow more smoothly. Or no, verse, you're whack. I'm just going to scrap you. I'm going to delete you because I can come harder than that. You know what I'm saying? So if the verse was a sentient, living organism, probably wouldn't understand why I do so much editing and deleting. So that's one metaphor we have, a creator to its creation. That's an analogy we have for God's relationship to us. Another one is like a master, or let's say a pet owner to its creature. Like some of you guys have dogs. I'm really not a big dog person, nor am I a cat person. My sisters, they've had several cats. The most recent cat died recently, RIP, you know what I'm saying? He didn't die in such a good way. The other cat got ran over. It was very okay. Anyway, I'm going off on a tangent. Uh, some of you guys have pets, and you really love your pets, right? So you care about them. Some of you guys take your pets way too seriously. I mean, you have outfits for your pets. You know what I'm saying? Underwear for your pets. You're tripping. They're animals. But anyway, some people really care about their pets, man. They take them to the doctor, the veterinarian. Around the corner from where we live, there's like a 24-hour pet hospital, which I think is kind of ridiculous. But I mean, it can wait till the morning, man. It's an animal. But Toy said that was insensitive. I'm sorry, Peter. You know, my bad. Anyway, so a creature in relation to their master or their owner, whatever you want to call it. Sometimes, you know, the creature will kind of be like, let's say dogs could communicate with us, you know, like on a linguistic level. Like, what would your dog say? You know, if you're going to get your dog like spayed and neutered, you know what I'm saying? It's like, roof, no, roof, 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 this hurts. You know what I'm saying? You putting a leash on your dog. You know, you be walking the dog, you got this chain around your dog's neck. You're like, roof, roof, this hurts. No. You're trying to potty train your dog because some of you people bring your dog indoors, which I don't understand that. But hey, you keep your dog inside. So you're trying to potty train your dog. Maybe you give your dog a little pat on the behind. Hey, you do it on the couch again. Spank, 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 spank. Don't do that. Your dog is like, roo, roo, this hurts, roo, roo, roo. The dog can't fully understand why you are allowing it to go through these uncomfortable, painful situations, but it's all for a greater good. Dogs live longer. I guess when they get spayed and neutered, they have less illegitimate puppies, whatever. You know what I'm saying? All of this stuff is good for the dog. It's not good for the dog to, you know, urinate and defecate all over your furniture. That's not a good situation. It can cause toxins to, you know, circulate through the air. They don't want to breathe those in. You know, so you have to discipline your dog and allow your dog to go through painful circumstances in order to get your dog to where you want it to be. Another analogy that we see in the scriptures is that of a father to a son. Now, you know what I'm saying? I'm a son, so I'm about to get real personal here, you know. And I know some of you all, you know, maybe you weren't raised like me, but how can I put this in a politically correct way? Let's see. You know, as a child coming up, I didn't always do what was right, you know. And when I didn't do what was right, my parents, they had a certain way of reprimanding me, of letting me know, hey, Jerry, you're on the wrong path. You know, some of you guys had timeout, and God bless you in your timeout. I'm not gonna be envious of you in your timeout, because what I went through made me stronger. You know what I'm saying? But see, in the Blackwell household, we didn't have timeout. You know, I would have prayed for time. There were days when I prayed for timeout. You know, I even would have fasted for it. You know, excuse me, I'm getting over a cold. There wasn't no timeout where I was coming from. There was a time when I went outside, you know, to get something from a tree. You know, there, I actually like had to take a part of a tree from outside and bring it indoors with me. You know, and if this particular part of a tree, you know, if it wasn't up to standard, I had to go back and get another part of the tree. You know what I'm saying? Get one that was a bit more suitable. And what was done with this tree, I won't expound upon, I won't elaborate, but let's just say oftentimes this was a painful situation. Something I didn't quite enjoy, you know, as, you know, being a son. I didn't look forward to these, you know, instances, which actually happen quite often, you know. Some of you guys see where I'm going, you know. I'll let your imagination take over. If you want more elaborate stories, please contact, you know, my sisters. I have sisters, Danielle Blackwell, Danielle Dixon. Now she's married. Shout out to Dee Dee, Gloria Destiny, who actually were the reasons why I encountered a lot of these situations. I was often a scapegoat. It wasn't always my fault, but nevertheless, we forgive, we move on. I went through some painful instances, but looking back, I see that all of the things I went through in those seasons it was really geared towards the betterment of me as a man. And now I'm thankful for those moments of discipline, however harsh and stern those moments may have been. And as much as I didn't understand it at the time, I realized that the pain was ultimately for a greater purpose. The fourth analogy we see uh, used to describe God's relationship to humanity is that of a husband to a wife. Even if you look at the Old Testament, Israel was seen as a wife who participated in whoredom with other idols, as opposed to being faithful to God. In the New Testament, the church is described as the bride of Christ. And being a married man, there's instances where, you have to make painful decisions, but it's really for the betterment of the family unit as a whole. So, in all four analogies, God uses pain to bring about good that the other may object to, the other party may object to, the other party may not understand, the other party may be like, yo, what's going on? Why is it so painful? But at the end of the day, we see that the pain is ultimately used by the superior party, the party that has more wisdom, the creator, the owner, the father, the husband. This person is really using the pain for a good that the other, although they may not understand, is ultimately working in their favor in the long run. And it's the same way. That's how God does us. C.S. Lewis actually put it this way in his book. He said, "For us to ask for less pain is actually us asking God for less love. It's asking for Him to care less about us, because in the Bible it says it's the bastards that go unpunished while the sons receive discipline, because God isn't satisfied with them the way they are. He wants them to be better. He wants them to grow. He wants them to have more joy in the long run, as opposed to temporary pleasure and comfort." Really deep when you think about it. C.S. also said this. He said, at the end of the day, we don't want a father in heaven. We always pray, "Our Father which art in heaven, hallowed be your name." He said, "No, you don't want a father in heaven. What you really want is a grandfather in heaven whose main goal is, at the end of the day, for it to be said, everybody had a good time." So you just want, a big Zeus-looking God in the sky with a big white beard, he's just looking down. He wants everybody to have fun, and he's going to give you everything on your Christmas list. That's how a lot of y'all's prayers sound, like Christmas lists. And that's how you see God. He wants you to have a nice, comfortable life, and just for you to have fun. Nothing bad ever happened to precious little you. But that's not what it's all about. You see, God allows pain to come into our existence for our betterment. It's ultimately for our good. The Bible says in the book of Romans 8, verse 28, that all things, and when it says all things, it encompasses things that are seemingly good and bad. All things work together for good to them who love God, and those who are called according to His purpose. For those He foreknew, He also predestined to be conformed to the image of His Son. So we see that confirmation to the image of Christ is the goal, not comfort, and for us to be chilling, what I'm saying. I had to keep the alliteration going. But anyway, C.S. Lewis also said this, and this is deep. He said, God whispers, bug flying around. God whispers to us in our pleasures, but He screams to us in our pains. He said that pain is God's megaphone to awaken a deaf world. That's C.S. Lewis. Think about that. Pain is God's megaphone to awaken a deaf world that's just asleep and chilling. I mean, I'll just keep it real with y'all. Even this past year, I went through a very painful period. Like the first half of this year, I would say it was just really crazy. It was a dark, deep, despondent place for me. And I'm really usually a pretty chipper, upbeat sort of guy, but it got real this year. So I'm keep it real with y'all. But in the midst of that, I can honestly say that God has given me a clarity and a focus and a closeness to Him that heretofore I hadn't really experienced on this level, man. And now everything is wonderful, and I'm actually thankful for the painful, uh, seemingly uh, insurmountable, just darkness that I was going through. I'm thankful for that because now it's ultimately brought me closer to God, closer to my wife Latoya, who's in the back. Oh, I need to stop the video because it's getting real long. Hey, can you come in? Can you pause this? We'll go to a different take. Thank you so much, Faye. You looking so good. Okay, so yeah, so God uses pain for our good. Go ahead, stop.